Maya ignored every red flag, not because she was blind, but because she wanted to believe love was stronger than doubt. She was 22 when she met Daniel at a small restaurant through mutual friends, and nothing about that night felt extraordinary at first. The place was filled with quiet laughter and soft music, glasses clinking gently as people talked across small tables, and Daniel had arrived without drawing attention to himself. He didn't speak loudly or try to impress anyone, but there was something steady about the way he carried himself that made her feel calm without understanding why. Their first conversation was simple and short, almost forgettable, yet it lingered in her mind longer than expected. He noticed small things about her, how she listened more than she spoke, how she smiled slightly before answering questions, and his calm presence felt safe in a way she wasn't used to. Soon after that night, his messages became part of her daily routine, starting small and harmless, asking if she got home safely, reminding her to eat, telling her to rest when she sounded tired. They felt thoughtful, consistent, comforting, like care disguised as ordinary words. Weeks turned into months, and Daniel slowly became part of her life in ways she didn't notice at first. Their calls stretched longer into the night, conversations shifting from casual topics to deeper ones about fears, dreams, and memories she rarely shared with others. He remembered details about her favorite songs, her childhood stories, and the way her voice changed when she felt overwhelmed. It made her feel seen, important, chosen, and that feeling made it easier to overlook the subtle changes that came later. At first, those changes were small enough to dismiss. A missed call here, a delayed reply there, conversations that ended sooner than usual. Each time she noticed something different, Daniel had an explanation ready. He said work had been stressful, that he was exhausted, that responsibilities were piling up. Every excuse sounded reasonable, calm, believable, and reasonable lies are the hardest to question because they hide inside normal behavior. But slowly, the space between them began to grow, not loudly or suddenly, but quietly, like something shifting beneath the surface. Then one night, everything changed when Maya was scrolling through social media and saw a photo that made her chest tighten unexpectedly. Daniel stood beside another girl, smiling in a way that felt familiar yet wrong. Too comfortable, too natural. The caption beneath the photo read, "Double dates are always better," and those words stayed frozen in her mind longer than the image itself. Her heart didn't shatter instantly. Instead, it sank slowly, heavy and cold, like something dropping into deep water. She tried to ignore the feeling at first, telling herself there could be explanations she didn't understand. But curiosity pushed her to search further. When she clicked into the girl's profile, more photos appeared, different days, different outfits, different locations, yet always the same girl beside him. Each image tightened a knot inside her chest until doubt became impossible to ignore. Still, she didn't confront him immediately because fear of losing him felt heavier than facing the truth she suspected. Instead, she watched and waited, paying closer attention to his behavior, noticing patterns she once dismissed as harmless. Then another post appeared while he claimed he was working late, showing him in the same restaurant she recognized from earlier photos. That was the moment she decided to see reality with her own eyes instead of relying on assumptions. Days later, she walked into that restaurant with her heart pounding harder than usual, her breath slower, heavier, uncertain. The warm lights inside felt normal. The sound of laughter filled the air, but everything around her seemed distant, blurred by anticipation. Her eyes scanned the room carefully until they landed on him. Daniel sat across from the same girl, laughing comfortably, holding her hand across the table like it belonged there. The sight didn't feel dramatic or explosive. It felt quiet, final, undeniable. She didn't scream or cry. She simply turned away before he noticed her and left the restaurant with the truth weighing heavily in her chest. Later, when she asked him where he had been that night, his answer came calmly, confidently, without hesitation. He said he was with family, speaking as if nothing had happened, as if lies came naturally to him. Even after she told him she had seen him, he denied it, insisting she misunderstood, repeating the same calm tone that once made her feel safe. That was the moment something inside her shifted. He wasn't confused, embarrassed, or guilty. He was comfortable lying, comfortable reshaping reality to protect himself. Days passed in uneasy silence until a message arrived from an unknown number, appearing unexpectedly on her screen. The sender introduced herself as Leah and said they needed to talk about Daniel. The message alone made Maya's chest tighten with unease, but curiosity pushed her to respond. When Leah revealed she was also Daniel's girlfriend, the truth landed heavily, not like a sudden shock, but like confirmation of fears she had tried to ignore. They agreed to meet at a cafe the next day, sitting across from each other with exhaustion written across their faces. Leah showed her phone, revealing conversations filled with messages identical to Maya's, the same affectionate words repeated again and again as if copied from memory. It felt less like love and more like duplication, like rehearsed lines delivered to multiple people. Then Leah revealed something worse, a folded paper she found in Daniel's apartment. When Maya unfolded it, confusion quickly turned into unease. It wasn't a love letter or reminder list. It was a schedule filled with names written beside times. Her own name appeared there, alongside Leah's, alternating neatly like appointments rather than relationships. That discovery felt colder than betrayal because it suggested planning instead of emotion, structure instead of connection. Together, they made a decision they never imagined making. Return to Daniel's apartment while he was away, searching for answers that had grown too disturbing to ignore. Inside, everything looked perfectly arranged, furniture aligned carefully, surfaces clean and untouched, the entire space controlled a way that felt unnatural. It looked less like a home and more like a place designed to hide something. In a drawer, they found black notebooks stacked neatly together. When they opened the first one, rows of names filled the pages, each followed by notes written in careful handwriting. Some lines described emotional responses, sensitivity to reassurance, reactions to distance. The words felt cold, detached, observational. Maya's breath caught when she saw her own name written among the others. Beside it were notes describing her behavior, as if she were being studied rather than loved. The realization made her stomach twist because it meant he hadn't just lied. He had watched her reactions and recorded them. As they flipped through more pages, they found printed photos attached beside different names, faces captured and organized like data instead of memories. The room felt smaller with each discovery, heavier with each page turned. At the back of the notebooks, they found small USB drives labeled with dates and initials, placed carefully as if they held something important. With trembling hands, Leah inserted one into Daniel's laptop, and the screen lit up with files arranged neatly in folders. When the first video opened, a girl appeared sitting on the couch, smiling and talking comfortably while Daniel entered carrying drinks. His behavior seemed normal at first, but something about his questions felt calculated rather than casual. He asked specific things about feelings, reactions, fears, guiding the conversation in subtle ways that didn't feel natural. Another video showed a different girl repeating the same pattern. Same couch, same style of questions, same careful tone. The repetition made it clear this wasn't coincidence but routine. Then another video opened, and Maya froze completely as she saw herself sitting on that same couch, smiling and speaking openly without knowing she was being recorded. Watching herself from outside felt deeply unsettling, like trust had been turned into evidence without her consent. Every confusing moment from the past suddenly made sense. The distance, the silence, the sudden reassurance that followed each withdrawal. None of it had been accidental. It had been intentional, repeated carefully to shape her reactions. She realized she hadn't been chosen or loved in the way she believed. She had been observed, studied, and documented as part of a pattern she never saw forming. That realization created a fear deeper than heartbreak, because it meant the relationship had never been genuine from the start. Standing there in the apartment, surrounded by notebooks, photos, and recordings, Maya understood that the red flags she ignored hadn't just led to betrayal. They had led her into something far more disturbing than she ever imagined. Something built on control instead of connection, observation instead of trust, and that truth stayed with her long after she left that apartment, changing the way she saw love, trust, and the quiet warnings she once ignored. And that truth stayed with her long after she left that apartment, changing the way she saw love, trust, and the quiet warnings she once ignored. The silence inside the apartment felt heavier than before, pressing against her chest like invisible weight that refused to lift. Maya stood still for several seconds, staring at the frozen laptop screen where her own face remained paused mid-laugh, a version of herself that had believed she was safe. The realization settled deeper into her mind with each passing second, making her breathing feel slower and more deliberate. Leah moved slightly beside her, her footsteps soft against the floor, but even that small sound felt loud in the thick silence. Neither of them spoke immediately because words suddenly felt too small to describe what they had just uncovered. The room, once ordinary, now felt unfamiliar, like every object around them had shifted meaning. The couch, the table, the neatly arranged books, all of it now looked staged, intentional, controlled. Maya's eyes drifted slowly across the room as memories replayed inside her mind. Small moments she once trusted now appearing different under this new understanding. She remembered sitting in this same space, laughing softly, believing she was building something meaningful with someone she trusted. She remembered the warmth she once felt here, the comfort she thought was genuine. Now that memory felt distant, almost unreal, like something borrowed from another life. Her chest tightened slightly as another thought formed. How many times had this happened before her? And how many times would it have continued if they had never discovered the truth? Leah closed the laptop slowly, her fingers trembling slightly as the screen went dark. The faint click echoed softly in the room, signaling the end of one discovery, but the beginning of something far more complicated. Maya swallowed carefully, forcing herself to breathe steadily even as her thoughts continued racing. She realized that leaving without understanding more might leave questions unanswered, but staying too long carried its own risks. The balance between curiosity and fear felt fragile, uncertain. Her eyes returned to the notebooks on the desk, their black covers now appearing heavier than before, like they held secrets far beyond what they had already seen. She reached forward slowly and opened another one, her movements careful and deliberate. The pages inside looked similar to the others, rows of names, notes written with precision, descriptions of reactions and responses. But further into the notebook, she noticed longer entries written in smaller handwriting, paragraphs that seemed more detailed than simple observations. Her pulse quickened slightly as she leaned closer to read. The writing described patterns, how certain behaviors produced predictable emotional reactions, how distance created anxiety, how reassurance restored trust. The words felt clinical, detached, almost instructional. She felt a wave of discomfort rise inside her chest as she realized these weren't reflections of feelings, but records of calculated behavior. Leah leaned in closer, reading silently beside her, her expression growing more tense with each line. The longer Maya stared at the writing, the more unsettling it felt, as if she were looking at something never meant to be understood by the people it described. Another page revealed dates connected to those observations, showing timelines stretching across months. The neat organization of time made her stomach twist slightly, because it showed patience, careful, repeated effort instead of impulsive behavior. She flipped another page, and a small diagram drawn in the corner caught her attention. It showed arrows connecting different actions to reactions, mapping patterns like cause and effect. The structure felt too deliberate to ignore. Maya's breathing slowed again as unease deepened into something heavier, awareness that this situation extended beyond simple deception. Leah exhaled softly, breaking the silence for the first time in minutes. Her voice sounded strained, almost fragile, as she whispered that they should leave before Daniel returned. Maya nodded slowly, agreeing without hesitation. The longer they remained there, the stronger the tension grew, and the apartment now felt less like a space and more like a trap waiting to close. Carefully, they placed the notebook back into the drawer, returning everything to its original position, as if nothing had been touched. Each movement felt cautious, deliberate, controlled. When they stepped toward the door, Maya felt her heartbeat increase again, not dramatically, but enough to remind her that fear had replaced curiosity. The hallway outside the apartment felt colder than before, the quiet stretching longer than expected. Leah locked the door behind them, the soft click echoing faintly through the corridor. Maya exhaled slowly as they moved toward the exit, her shoulders feeling tense with every step. Once outside the building, the night air touched her skin, cool and sharp against the warmth inside. She inhaled deeply, letting the fresh air fill her lungs, but the weight inside her chest remained unchanged. The city around them continued normally, cars passing, distant voices echoing, lights glowing in windows, but everything felt distant, disconnected, unreal. Leah stood beside her silently, her expression reflecting the same exhaustion Maya felt inside. Neither of them spoke immediately because the reality of what they had discovered still felt too heavy to explain. Finally, Maya broke the silence, her voice quieter than expected as she admitted that nothing about this felt like ordinary betrayal anymore. Leah nodded slowly, agreeing without hesitation. The words they exchanged felt careful, measured, uncertain. They both understood that what they had seen raised more questions than answers. Maya glanced back toward the building briefly, her thoughts drifting toward the countless names recorded in those notebooks. The idea that there were others, more people who might never know the truth, created a new kind of unease inside her. The realization that patterns like these could continue unnoticed made her chest tighten slightly. As they began walking away from the building, Maya noticed how different the world looked compared to earlier that day. Streetlights glowed brighter than usual, shadows stretched longer across the pavement, and ordinary sounds seemed louder in the quiet night. Her footsteps felt slower, heavier, as if the weight of realization had settled into her body. She replayed everything in her mind. The first messages, the growing distance, the late-night reassurance that once felt comforting. Now each memory carried a different meaning, shaped by what she had discovered. Trust, once simple, now felt complicated, layered with doubt and uncertainty. Leah spoke again after several minutes, her voice softer but steadier this time, asking what Maya planned to do next. The question lingered between them, unanswered at first. Maya hesitated before responding, because the truth was she didn't know yet. Her thoughts felt tangled, her emotions shifting between disbelief and determination. She knew one thing clearly. Ignoring the truth was no longer an option. The quiet confidence she once felt had been replaced by cautious awareness. As they reached the end of the street, Maya paused briefly, her gaze drifting upward toward the dark sky. The stillness above felt calming compared to chaos inside her thoughts. She inhaled slowly again, forcing herself to steady her breathing. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear and confusion, a new feeling began forming, resolve. Not anger, not revenge, but clarity. The understanding that trust required awareness, that warning signs mattered more than comfort. That realization stayed with her as she continued walking, step by step, moving further away from the apartment, yet carrying the memory of it with her. And as the distance grew, she realized that the red flags she once ignored had not appeared suddenly. They had existed from the beginning, hidden beneath comfort and routine, waiting quietly until they became impossible to overlook. And as she walked further down the quiet street, that realization stayed with her like a shadow that refused to disappear. The night air felt colder now, not because the temperature had changed, but because her understanding of everything around her had shifted. The trust she once gave so freely now felt fragile, like something that could break without warning. Each step she took felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of everything she had discovered followed closely behind her. She replayed the early moments of their relationship in her mind again, searching for signs she might have missed. The gentle messages that once made her smile now felt rehearsed in her memory. The apologies that once sounded sincere now echoed differently, as if they had always been part of a pattern she never noticed before. Leah walked beside her quietly, her silence filled with the same exhaustion Maya felt inside. Neither of them needed to explain what they were thinking, because the truth they had uncovered spoke louder than any words they could share. After several minutes, Leah finally stopped walking and turned slightly toward Maya, her expression uncertain but determined. She said softly that what they had found wasn't something they could simply ignore or forget. Maya nodded slowly, knowing that the discovery had changed more than just their relationship with Daniel. It had changed how they understood trust itself. The thought that there were more names in those notebooks lingered in her mind, creating a quiet unease that refused to settle. She wondered how many other people had unknowingly walked into the same pattern, believing they were part of something meaningful. The idea alone made her chest tighten slightly, not from panic, but from awareness that some situations extended far beyond what was visible on the surface. As they continued walking, Maya noticed how the lights from nearby buildings reflected faintly on the pavement, creating long shadows that stretched across their path. Those shadows reminded her of the red flags she once ignored, Small, subtle warnings that seemed harmless until they grew too large to overlook. She realized that trust without awareness could become dangerous, especially when comfort made it easier to dismiss doubt. The quiet strength forming inside her felt unfamiliar but steady, like something rebuilding itself piece by piece. She understood now that ignoring discomfort only delayed the truth, and delaying truth often made its discovery more painful. Leah spoke again, asking if Maya believed Daniel would realize what had happened once he returned home. The question lingered in the air, unanswered for several seconds. Maya considered it carefully before responding, knowing that discovery often led to consequences that couldn't be predicted. She admitted quietly that eventually he would notice something had changed, but what mattered most now was what they chose to do next. The future felt uncertain, but uncertainty no longer frightened her the way it once had. Instead, it reminded her that awareness created strength, and strength made it possible to face uncomfortable realities. As they reached the corner of the street, Maya slowed her steps slightly, turning her head one last time to glance back toward the direction they had come from. The building was no longer visible, hidden behind distance and darkness, yet its memory remained clear in her mind. She knew that the experience inside those walls would stay with her for a long time, shaping the way she saw people and the choices she made moving forward. The silence between them returned again, but this time it felt different, not heavy with confusion, but steady with understanding. The realization that trust should be earned, not assumed, settled deeply within her thoughts. She remembered how easily she once dismissed small doubts, choosing comfort instead of curiosity, reassurance instead of reflection. Now she understood that those small doubts were not weaknesses but warnings, signals meant to protect her from situations that didn't feel right. As the street grew quieter and the sound of passing cars faded into the distance, Maya felt a strange sense of clarity forming inside her chest. Not relief, not peace, but awareness, sharp, steady, undeniable. She realized that the red flags she once ignored had never truly been invisible. They had been present all along, waiting patiently until she was ready to see them clearly. And in that moment, she understood something that would stay with her long after night ended. That ignoring warning signs does not make them disappear. It only delays the moment they demand to be seen. The memory of everything she had uncovered followed her into the quiet night, not as a burden, but as a reminder that trust should never silence instinct. And as she walked forward, leaving the past behind step by step, she carried with her a new understanding, one that would shape every choice she made from that day forward, reminding her that the quietest warnings are often the ones that matter most, and that sometimes the greatest danger is not the lies we are told, but the truths we choose not to question. And as the night swallowed the last echo of her footsteps, Maya realized that love was never supposed to feel like confusion, silence, or fear. Real trust doesn't hide in shadows, and real care doesn't leave you questioning your own instincts. The red flags she once ignored had not just revealed the truth about him. They had revealed the truth about herself. And from that moment forward, she made a quiet promise she would never break again. To listen to the small warnings in her chest, to question what didn't feel right, and to walk away the moment comfort tried to silence her intuition. Because sometimes the scariest stories aren't about monsters or darkness. They're about the moments we ignore what we already know. And long after Daniel disappeared from her life, one lesson stayed with her stronger than any memory. The red flags were never hidden, she had only chosen not to see them.